everyone. Thanks for coming in the morning. I know sometimes it's tough on a second day of a conference. And so let's talk about markets and about crowdfunding, which is just a name I made up, but perhaps it fits. Basically, we are interested in whether the betting thing that's happening on the prediction markets, which I don't think I need to tell you it's a big thing, right? So I'm skipping on the motivation. And we are trying to investigate whether we can perhaps also use this mechanism for something that actually helps the outcomes that these things are built on top of. I'm a researcher at Logos, and I've been dealing and looking into this on and off for the past year. So let me start with a short example. So suppose we have a fundraiser, and there's a community that wants to build a park. The goal is 10K, right? And we are at a stage where they have 7K. It's still 3K short. It's 1 week before the end of this fundraiser. And we enable betting on whether this target, this goal will be hit. So we have just 2 bettors. We have Betty. She's convinced it's gonna hit the goal, so she's betting 2K on that. And on the other side, we have Nick, who is betting 4K on the contrary. And of course, if Nick wins, he gets Betty's stake, and in vice versa, right? And you can see that already in the money that's in the system now, because we now have the fundraiser, and then we have the betting on top, it already exceeds the goal that was put out as 10K, right? So the clock's ticking, right? And no one's showing up. It looks like Nick is about to win, because we are still 3K short. But Betty has an idea, and she thinks, well, if I donate the 3K myself, actually, we are gonna hit the goal. My bet's gonna be successful, and I will get Nick's 4K. So it's not actually such a bad deal, right? Because I make 1 extra K out of this move. So if you want to look at the napkin math, it's the 1K that she's getting from Nick, because she is spending the 3K on topping up the fundraiser to succeed. So in the end, the park gets built, and she is profitable on her bet, and it helped the underlying cause, right? So now that was a very special setup. Now we need to realize what happens in reality, right? In reality, we would have, on that side of the market, where Betty was, we would have a number of Bettys. Like suppose there's 50, right? And of course, they could still top up with the 3K, but who pays for it? How do they coordinate? Who will be, it's the optimal strategy always to free ride and wait if someone does it for you, right? So they need some sort of coordination to overcome this free rider problem that exists there. And so essentially, the basis of this research is the idea that what if we had a protocol that actually does this Betty trick, but it does it for tens of Bettys, right? And it does it automatically, such that it provides the accounting that's resulting as if they coordinate it. So the idea basically is that if we pool all the bets, that's the yes bet and no bet with the donations, and if we have enough money in the system such that we are going beyond the goal, then we are able to execute a strategy where, with the gap being 3K, we can actually just take Nick's money from the speculation capital and put it towards the fundraiser, and we satisfy this fundraiser. Betty wins, and she receives her original stake, which is 2K, plus whatever's remaining in the system, which is the untouched 1K of Nick's. So her profit is again 1K. So if you want to compare side by side, you would have the very same outcome, and because we just pool the money, and we just make sure that the campaign is successful. So as I was saying, the protocol settles as if all the yes bettors coordinated. it's an opinionated thing, right, in itself, but it optimizes for getting the thing funded, whereas not getting it funded. So that was like a motivation for the broader claim that actually in special cases we can use the bad liquidity for potential funding of the underlying cause. So we are able to use speculative capital as productive capital. So now being more formal, let me just talk about this draft to funding one mechanism, and it's called one because there's just one campaign. I'll show you certain extensions which are perhaps more interesting, but let's just focus on this one today mostly. So formally we have a campaign that's a goal G with a period T, and then you have like a private benefit, right? If you are a donor for this cause, if I donate on a Kickstarter, I am getting something for it as a perk. So that's the B that actually I'm getting as a private benefit. And we also have a parameter beta, which is not that important, is what I'm presenting today. But that one is just in case I'm a bettor and my actual bet is drafted, then I also might be able to get some benefit from that. So that just denominates the fraction that would be of that private benefit that I'm getting. Well, but you have three actions essentially. So you can donate, right, and then you get the private benefit B. You can also bet on the yes part that it's getting funded, and bet on the no part that it's not getting funded. And of course, as I was saying, the yes bets, their potential upside is coming from the no bets because those are always allocated to the winner. And it's irrevocable, so once you bet, you cannot revoke your bet. Now, just this simple design leads to three phases. So essentially, you have the pre-lock phase, where the capital is not able to reach the goal in the system. Then, once we satisfy this inequality, we have enough capital in the system. We already know that the goal is getting funded, right? And drafting is what I call is taking the bet and putting it into the funding. So we know that this is going to happen via drafting. So we cannot bet because we already know that the yes part is winning. But we can still have donations. So that's why in the post-lock period you have donations, and they actually crowd out the drafting that was happening earlier, that was assumed earlier, because it can still be before the end of the T period, before the end of the campaign, and it could be that we already know it's getting funded, but you can always have more donations coming in. So that's the main design. Now this is a bunch of things which kind of just formally represent that, some payoffs. I don't think it makes sense to go into that. I'll just show it as something for perhaps the video recording. What is interesting here is that on failure, the donors just get back their own donation, right? The yes bettors, they're losing, so their payoff is 0. But what's interesting in the no part is that you are getting back your no votes plus a proportional stake of the yes pool. So you are getting paid, if it's failing, and at the same time there's no risk for donating, and if it fails, you get your full donation back. So, but there was a bit of a unfair thing to provide you with the example earlier, because we didn't really look at how those two parts, the Betty and Nix, how they end up in that situation where they are in a betting market and they feel like they should bet whether the goal is hit. So we should probably think about why do they land there in the first place? And the idea is that the system is designed in a way that donations are there just for the sake of the benefit, of course, independent of the betting part. But no's and yes, it's like a vicious circle, right? Because they are each pool is a reward pool for the other one. So why should no's show up if there are no yeses? Why should yeses show up if there are no no's? Would you bet, without knowing what's your reward because you don't know who? There's no bets on the other part yet, and the system has properties such that, of course, at the start of the campaign, the no's are it's very attractive to. It's the most attractive to bet no, right? Because only after that you would probably get donations that are coming in. You would get more capital flowing into the system, and that makes not hitting the goal perhaps always less likely, right? The opposite holds for yes. As you are closing on the goal, probably it's more likely that you're going to hit it. So the answer to why these guys would actually be in this market is that they don't arrive at the same time. So it's most likely that the no's actually show up very early when there's more uncertainty, and the yeses show up once they know, this is more attractive and possibly, towards the end of the campaign. But there's an inherent dependency chain, as I was saying, because one is a reward for the other. So we need to figure out how we can break this vicious circle and actually introduce some mechanism that helps trigger it from donations and also what I'm calling a mission-aligned capital. Mission-aligned capital, what I mean by that is that it's just a capital that wants to get the underlying cause funded. And it doesn't have a preference whether they do it through donations or through some betting activity, but they are willing to commit the capital just to produce the outcome. And I'll talk about that in a minute, because it actually turns out that the way the system behaves is very much shaped by the benefit, the private benefit from donations. So if your donation doesn't actually provide anything to you, and it's perhaps more like a public service or any sort of like a shared outcome that you are willing to fund, but perhaps you don't draw like a private benefit out of it, it's a different system, right? Because in that case, if there's no reward, actually it makes more sense for this mission-aligned capital, the capital that wants the thing funded, to bet on not getting it funded. And that's because he's still a funder who does this is still getting the possibility that, if it's like a conditional funding, so he's getting the option to, if we are near the goal, to actually close the gap and have his money committed to the cause. But also he is, in terms of expected value, he is possibly motivated by the fact that he is getting the yes rewards, right? Potentially on failure. So on failure, he's getting the yes rewards, and on success, he's happy because he contributed to funding the underlying cause. Whereas, if he just donated, he would lose all his money on success, which is just fine, but he wouldn't get any profits on the failure of the campaign. So with a small b, there's like a middle ground example, but so let's focus on the one with the large b, which is one where the donation is still the thing to do for mission-aligned capital, and that's because they are getting this private benefit, which is big enough. So it's still preferred, and the issue is that even if you have donations running in, it doesn't trigger this sort of dependency chain. So what we would need to have in that case, to have some tax on donations in the failure case, and in that case they would flow to the no betters, so that there's some donation coming in, and if I'm betting no and there's no counterparty yes yet, I am still getting that KD on the failure scenario. Good. So that's like the basic outline of the mechanism. Now, how can it be extended, right? So we had one campaign with one threshold. So obviously, you can think about multiple thresholds. So you can have multiple Gs, and then we would have a system where there's bets allocated to these different thresholds. Perhaps not all of those bets actually have like a counterparty on like the yes and no symmetry, right? But this version opens up like some redistribution that is possible, because like a losing bet on one threshold can fund a winning bet on a different one. And the challenge is also the clearing mechanism. So because you could have like a drafting that converts into satisfying one threshold, the next threshold doesn't get satisfied, but there could be enough liquidity and enough betting on the subsequent threshold that doing a coalition sort of like clearing would actually like push it to this next threshold. So there's more like algorithmic questions around this. Also, you can have like continuous funding. So suppose there's like no deadline, right? But there's like a reserve of like a protocol, their treasury or something. They have some burn rate, and it's more like an insurance. You could have betting on this reserve not hitting 0, and obviously no is betting that actually they go bankrupt, right? And then you would have some sort of tax that funds the yes bettors, and the no guys would be paying for that. And if the event actually happens that they go beyond 0, that potentially you could use drafting to like sanitize this sort of shortage in a short term, taking some of the bet liquidity, and then the system survives, and you need to probably also like have some follow-up mechanism to perhaps over time, if it goes into profitable terms, repay this debt towards the bettors potentially. Well, and what's possibly most interesting for me as a subsequent research is having endogenous goals. So this means that you would have more projects, like say there's 5 projects, and like there's funds allocating across those projects, and you could. And my goal as a project could be just being the second project if we rank them in terms of funding, or getting some sort of share. So it's like a moving target, right? Because if my project is satisfying that, perhaps there's your project which has enough bet liquidity we can draft money from, such that it just supersedes mine project, and then I could iterate this, right? And I could also like take my bet liquidity and again like go beyond that perhaps until we exhaust that. So that it's a question also of like efficiency of drafting, and the settlement is ultimately like a fixed point in this way how we draft across these projects. And I have just a few minutes left, so I'm just going to rush over applications here. And I have just 3 showcase applications for different regimes of the B, right? Greater action markets with 0, threshold crowdfunding with a small one, and large, which is a token launchpad. So let me just start with the threshold crowdfunding and not spend much time on this, because that's pretty much the example I showed you initially, right? There's a goal that we need to hit, and the backers are getting some perks for contributing. And what this mechanism does is that if we are close to the threshold at the end, and there's enough betting liquidity, we are able to push through and satisfy the threshold. So it produces more funded campaigns than not. Now let me talk about these action markets. So this is assuming that there's like a local trusted authority that asks one question, and it's like using a prediction market to trigger some sort of outcome in the society, right? We usually see it with the Trump administration, but we don't see it in the real world so much. Actually, there was like a guy at the Paris airport who brought a hairdryer to actually change the temperature on a sensor to win on Polymarket. So now we are asking, like, how can we set up like a prediction market such that we are able to trigger the underlying action, right? So here we have like an illegal dump on a street, and we are asking whether it's getting cleared. And there's some local authority that just posed this question. And if I'm willing to pay for this, it actually means that I need to bet that it's not getting cleared, right? Because then I'm creating the opportunity for someone else to show up, and I call him a doer, and bet yes, which is like an active citizen who does it themselves. So he bets yes, and he goes and cleans it, and the local authority says it was cleaned, and the bets, are routed to him that he's winning from the funder. And what can draft to funding do here is that we can have like a fallback contractor, which is like a quote for 2K, and if the authority realizes that the market has the size of 2K already, it can just close the market and order the contractor to do it, and everyone's satisfied because all the money in the market was just willing to pay for this cost. They just didn't know who to pay, for example. So this just summarizes what it is. So there is a proportional speculation to the cost. By design, there's no way for a speculation market to outgrow out of proportion, and it's capped by the cost of the action in this case. And lastly, I want to present the token launchpad application, which I think is interesting because here it maps very nicely to like a DeFi space. So on like the pump.fun launchpads, for example, you have the bonding curve launchpad, right? And there's a threshold at which you graduate to like a Uniswap AMM. And so here, how it maps is that the donors are actually buyers of the token on the bonding curve initially, like you would have normally. And then you would have betting on whether the token manages to go beyond the threshold and graduate within some time frame. So you can bet on that as you would normally. But what happens if it doesn't clear, and if we have enough money in the system to actually reach the threshold, then the yes bets would, and then actually all the bets, would just be used for swaps, right? They would be used because we have the bonding curve, so we know exactly how much capital we need to reach the price that associated with this threshold, and then we would just use this money and buy the token, and that would pump the price towards the threshold, and we still have the money in the system. It's not like we spend the money, we just swap them into a different token. So now, if you have drafted capital, actually like the yes bettors, and if they get drafted, it means that only the money that they put in the system are converted to a different denomination, potentially because it was like on an earlier part of the bonding curve, it's more attractive. It's profitable. And they could be getting also the no capital, which is again, partly could be drafted, partly not, and that would be also converted to tokens and hold the value. So to conclude, I hope I convinced you that there exists ways in which we can turn speculative capital into productive one, and we can do that if we really focus on the underlying actions that these huge markets are built on, and we think about how we could leverage that, and we ground that with this sort of mechanism such that we don't grow out of proportions and have a cap on this speculation. So thank you very much. There's a much longer talk that you can watch on this, and I'm on X. I am working on a paper regarding this, and that's going to be hopefully available very soon. And I also urge you to look at what we are doing at Logos. We have a new builder program and a lot of to offer also to dev studios. So thank you very much.